Hi, I want to take a couple minutes to talk about Newton's second law and the way that most modern textbooks present Newton's second law the first time that it's encountered is to say that when forces act on an object, the forces, cause the object to accelerate proportional to the net force in the direction of the net force and inversely proportional to the inertia of the object. Now, for linear motion, inertia, which is the resistance to an object's motion changing, is the same thing as the mass of that object. So written out as an equation, we could express this as our acceleration as a vector is equal to the sum of all of our force vectors divided by the mass or inertia of the object. Now, I say here as a disclaimer, this is not what Newton actually wrote, because I did have an advisor who, in his freshman physics classes, would take off points if you were to write the rearranged version that the sum of the forces is the mass times the acceleration. Because that is not what Newton said as a second law. What Newton said was a net force causes a quantity of motion to change. And his quantity of motion wasn't based on velocity directly as we understand it from talking about acceleration in kinematics. So to get to the proper Newtonian definition of Newton's second law, we need to talk about Newton's quantity of motion, or momentum, which we'll look at a little bit later in our course. Now, this isn't complete. This is the business end of the laws, so if we magically were to say, these are the forces acting on an object, this is how to do it. But we have no a priori way of knowing exactly how we would identify what forces act on what object. Now, a lot of textbooks take this introduction of Newton's second law, including the textbook that we're using in our class, and then springboard into talking about all of the different forces, identifying forces and summing them together before we actually talk about Newton's third law. And this is a bit of a mistake because Newton's third law tells us explicit instructions for how we identify forces. And the third law is probably the most misunderstood and misapplied of Newton's three laws, but we'll talk about the third law in another video. Thanks for watching.